Welcome back to ABC General Hospital Spoilers Channel. Today, we will learn about an absolutely spectacular issue filled with shocking twists and turns in the world of Port Charles Hospital. The events about to unfold will completely transform the way we view our beloved characters, while bringing unexpected turns that no one could have predicted. Let us explore together the fascinating details about the future of Drew, Willow, and everyone around them. Drew and Willow, a wedding full of hope yet fraught with complications. After months of weathering storms and facing countless challenges in their relationship, Drew and Willow have finally decided to take the leap into marriage. Their wedding ceremony is intended to be a romantic event, an opportunity for them to close the dark chapter from their past, particularly the shooting incident that Drew had to endure in Port Charles. Both of them hope that this wedding will mark a fresh beginning, a moment when they can focus on their love for one another and build a bright future together, leaving behind the trauma of yesterday. The ceremony has been organized meticulously with careful attention to every detail, from decorative arrangements to the carefully selected guest list. All of Drew and Willow's loved ones are present, sharing in their joy. The atmosphere at the reception is filled with warm sunshine, bright smiles, and hopeful expectations for the couple's future. Everyone appears to be witnessing a fairy tale come to life, a love story powerful enough to overcome any adversity. However, just as the reception reaches its peak, a mysterious stranger unexpectedly appears among the guests. This arrival seems ordinary at first, but no one could have imagined what this person is about to deliver. The stranger approaches Willow, holding a white envelope in hand, and gently presents it to her. This moment, though brief and seemingly insignificant, will become the turning point for everything that follows. The envelope containing shocking evidence. When Willow opens the envelope, she discovers documents and evidence related to Drew's shooting incident. This is certainly not the joyful news she expected on her wedding day. Instead, these documents reveal horrifying truths that she could never have imagined. The evidence in the envelope clearly indicates that the infamous shooting was not a random attack or spontaneous incident, but rather the result of a carefully orchestrated conspiracy. The images within the documents show a man with a covered face, features that Willow recognizes as bearing striking similarities to Ryan, one of the most dangerous criminals Port Charles has ever known. This realization brings a shocking wave of horror. Ryan is a name that everyone would prefer to forget, a person who has caused immense suffering and terror throughout the community. And now, this evidence suggests that he, or at least someone resembling him, might be the one behind the shooting of Drew. The scene at the wedding reception descends into chaos. When Willow shares her discovery with Drew, he feels waves of anger and anxiety crashing over him. The dream of a peaceful wedding day, a day when they could imagine that dangers had passed, is now shattered. Instead, they find themselves pulled into a new maze, a labyrinth from which there seems to be no escape, a large-scale conspiracy unveiled. But the story does not end there. As Drew and Willow carefully examine the documents in the envelope, they discover that what they are seeing is merely the tip of a much larger iceberg. The evidence points to a massive conspiracy, one that is not only targeting Drew, but has other objectives as well. The documents link these events to a figure named Sidwell, a person whom Drew and others have encountered previously. Sidwell appears to be a central name in this conspiracy, someone with deep connections to the underground forces operating in Port Charles's world. The documents suggest that Sidwell is not merely a secondary character, but rather part of a much larger network, a network with long arms extending everywhere. This conspiracy seems designed to track specific individuals, to control them, and if necessary, to eliminate them. This understanding makes Drew and Willow realize that their situation is far more dangerous than they had imagined. Not only is Drew under threat, but there are others who may also be in the crosshairs. Loved ones, friends, and possibly even colleagues could become the next targets. This realization brings deep-seated fear, a feeling that nowhere is safe, that threats could come at any time from any direction. The police enter the case. Dante reopens the investigation. When Drew and Willow discover this evidence, they have no choice but to alert the police. The investigative force, led by Dante, a determined detective at the Port Charles Police Department, quickly springs into action. Dante is known for his sharp instincts and unwavering commitment to uncovering the truth, making him the ideal person to handle such a complex and dangerous case. When Dante receives information about the new evidence, he quickly decides to reopen the investigation into Drew's shooting incident. This is a case that Dante approaches with fresh determination, understanding that the new evidence could be the key to finally solving what has been a puzzling mystery. Dante begins to re-interview everyone involved, searching for details and connections that might have been overlooked or deliberately hidden previously. One of the people being re-questioned is Curtis, a character with complicated connections to these events. Dante knows that Curtis may hold vital information that could crack this case wide open. Curtis may know things that he has not yet revealed, or perhaps he has discovered something important that he has been reluctant to share. Dante applies all of his investigative skills, experience, and persuasive techniques in an effort to extract the truth from Curtis. These interrogation sessions become increasingly intense and charged, with each question seeming to dig deeper into the secrets that Port Charles has been carefully concealing. The forces behind this are extremely powerful. As Dante continues his investigation, he begins to realize that the forces behind this conspiracy are extraordinarily powerful and well organized. This is not the work of a single shooter acting on impulse or a random act of violence, but rather the result of a sophisticated organization, an organization with vast resources and connections spread far and wide throughout the city and beyond. The evidence that Dante uncovers suggests that those behind this criminal enterprise have the capability and willingness to attack Drew and Willow at any moment to cover their tracks and silence anyone who might expose them. Fear spreads throughout Port Charles as news of this sinister conspiracy begins to leak out to the public. Everyone realizes with growing dread that they are living in a city where powerful criminals continue to operate freely. Individuals capable of maintaining long-term conspiracies and eliminating threats to their operations. This sense of pervasive insecurity affects not only Drew and Willow, but also countless others throughout the community, who begin to wonder anxiously if they too might become the next target of these ruthless criminals. Trust is shaken throughout the city. As details of the investigation become public knowledge, trust throughout Port Charles begins to crumble and fracture. People start to question motives and suspect the roles of key figures in the community. Doubt begins to poison relationships that were once solid. Who can be trusted? Who has hidden connections to these underground forces? These questions begin to spread rapidly through the community like wildfire, creating an atmosphere thick with suspicion and heightened caution. Curtis, with his complicated connections and mysterious background, becomes a particular focus of suspicion and speculation. Is Curtis somehow implicated in this conspiracy? Did he know more than he was saying? Rumors begin to circulate wildly through Port Charles, stories about hidden connections between prominent citizens and criminal elements, about dark secrets that important people in the city have been keeping hidden from public view. This wave of suspicion affects not only individuals, but also social structures and institutions, organizations that people once trusted implicitly. Drew and Willow face a future filled with unrelenting danger. For Drew and Willow, these shocking events have transformed their wedding into an unforgettable moment, but certainly not for the positive reasons they had hoped. Instead, they now face a future fraught with peril and uncertainty. The happiness they have just found and fought so hard to achieve is now threatened by powerful forces that they do not yet fully understand or comprehend. But Drew and Willow are not people who give up easily or surrender to fear. They decide to fight courageously for the truth, determined to discover who orchestrated this vicious attack, committed to understanding the true motives and objectives behind it. They know with certainty that the safety of their family depends entirely on their ability to find, expose, and bring to justice those responsible for this dangerous conspiracy. The journey ahead will be a difficult path full of hardships and unexpected obstacles. They will have to face grave dangers, shocking surprises, and people they cannot trust or rely upon. But they also have valuable support from loyal friends, from law enforcement officers like Dante who are determined to help them, and from those who genuinely care about their well-being. The combination of deep love, unwavering determination, and strong support from those around them will be what helps them overcome the challenges that lie ahead. What will the coming days and weeks reveal? Who is truly behind this massive conspiracy? Will Drew and Willow be able to discover the complete truth before it is too late? Will Dante's investigation uncover all the connections to Sidwell and the larger criminal network? These compelling questions continue to drive the story forward with momentum, creating an atmosphere filled with anticipation, anxiety, and desperate hope. We will have to wait to see what happens next in the dramatic and unpredictable world of Port Charles. The tension continues to build as our beloved characters navigate through danger and deception. Every clue uncovered by Dante brings them closer to the truth, but also potentially closer to danger. Drew and Willow must remain vigilant and cautious, knowing that their every move is being watched. The mystery deepens with each passing moment, and the stakes have never been higher. Next, we will learn about the issue of Selena Wu's shocking return, Curtis's darkest secret, and the bullet that refuses to stay buried in Port Charles. For months, Selena Wu has been less of a person and more of a campfire tale whispered in the corners of the Savoy and down at the docks. She was the mob queen who vanished in smoke after being framed for a brutal firebombing, the woman everyone assumed was gone, but no one truly believed was finished. Her name became a warning more than a memory. Say it too loudly, and you might invite the storm back into town. While the police checked boxes and the five families quietly rewrote their alliances, one fact remained. You don't erase someone like Selena Wu. You only give her time to choose her next move. This week, General Hospital finally pulled back the curtain and answered the question that's been hanging over Port Charles. Where did Selena go? And what did she do in the dark? In a chilling flashback, the truth didn't just peek out, it detonated. Selena did not slink back into town to lick her wounds or beg for a seat at the table. She returned with a contract on her ledger, $1 million payoff in her pocket, and a confession that could topple one of Port Charles' so-called good men. Curtis Ashford, the man who prides himself on honor, was the one who secretly hired Selena Wu to kill Drew Kane. The scene was simple, but the implications were enormous. No shouting, no threats, no overt show of power, just an envelope, a number, and a request that could never be taken back. $1 million slid across a table in the shadows, along with Curtis's soul. He thought he was buying a clean solution to a problem. Drew, the man who stood in his way, the man whose presence complicated Curtis's already fractured life. In Curtis's mind, this was a business transaction, a one-time sin that could be buried with the body. In Selena's world, it was something entirely different, a binding contract with no expiration date. Selena Wu has never treated violence as an emotional reaction. For her, power is a puzzle, not a tantrum. Every move must pay off in three directions: money, control, and information. When Curtis asked her to get blood on her hands, he didn't just cross a moral line, he handed her a permanent piece of leverage. From that moment on, he stopped being just a club owner and became something far more useful to her, a man who could be destroyed with a single recording, a single piece of evidence, a single whispered truth to the right person. Curtis thought he was hiring a hitwoman. In reality, he was volunteering to become her asset. But here's where the story twists in a way that feels uniquely Selena. The hit went down, or at least, it was supposed to. Drew Kane was targeted, the ambush was set, and shots were fired that should have left no room for survival. The men who pulled the trigger even delivered what, on paper, should have been a professional job. A calculated strike, a double tap meant to erase Drew from the board. And yet, Drew lived. He crawled out of the grave someone dug for him, battered but breathing, his survival spinning in the face of the plan that was supposedly put in motion. That's where the doubts begin to creep in, not just for viewers, but for anyone in Port Charles who understands how Selena Wu operates. This kind of sloppiness does not match her brand. Selena's reputation in the five families is built on precision, on jobs that don't leave survivors and wars that end before anyone realizes they've started. When her enemies go down, they don't get back up again to tell the tale. So the question becomes unavoidable. If these were Selena's men, why did they miss? And more importantly, were they truly hers at all? There's a version of this story where Selena ordered a straightforward hit, and her foot soldiers simply failed. But that version doesn't line up with what the audience knows about her. A far more dangerous possibility emerges. What if Selena took Curtis's money but never intended for Drew to die? What if she allowed another party to move in, let someone else pull the trigger, or even manipulated the timing so that the job looked done while still keeping her hands clean? If that's the case, Curtis didn't just hire a killer, he funded a carefully constructed illusion. Plausible deniability is the sharpest weapon Selena could ever wield, and right now, she holds it like a blade at everyone's throat. If she did not personally greenlight the hit, or if she created enough distance that nothing can ever be traced back to her, she sits in the safest seat in the room. She can claim she was framed before, and now she can claim she's being framed again. The PCPD can search, the five families can speculate, Curtis can panic. But at the end of the day, the only person who knows exactly how much of this she orchestrated is Selena herself, and she has zero incentive to fill in the blanks for anyone. Meanwhile, Curtis is crumbling beneath the weight of his own secret. On the surface, he's still the man trying to rebuild his life, managing the Savoy, navigating the wreckage of his relationships, struggling with guilt, even wrestling with his own physical limitations after being shot. But beneath that, there is a man who made a choice he never believed he was capable of making. He didn't just think about murder, he commissioned it. Now, with the PCPD circling and eyes turning his way, his carefully constructed alibi is starting to look like tissue paper in a storm. The police presence in this story isn't just background noise. The PCPD is slowly tightening the noose, piecing together fragments of timelines, money trails, and suspicious interactions. Curtis's alibi doesn't quite fit as neatly as he thought it would. Security footage at the Savoy may not cover every angle he needs it to. Phone records, bank movements, and unexplained meetings start to form a pattern that points straight at him. And through all of this, Selena watches quietly, knowing that the more heat lands on Curtis, the cooler her own trail becomes. While the cops dig, the criminal world makes an even bigger mistake. They underestimate Selena Wu. The remaining power players in the five families still talk about her like she's a problem to be contained instead of a storm front that's already overhead. In their minds, she is a woman who is pushed out, framed, and weakened. They imagine she's scrambling for relevance, trying to reassert control over her old territory. What they don't realize is that Selena did her best work off the board, building a new kind of influence from the shadows. Selena's time in exile was not spent licking wounds. It was reconnaissance. She learned who moved against her during the firebombing frame-up. She tracked who profited from her absence, who took over her business interests, who dared to speak her name with disrespect. Every betrayal became a data point. Every slight was cataloged. And now, she returns not as a woman grasping for old power, but as someone who has redefined what power looks like in Port Charles. She has information, leverage, and thanks to Curtis, a confession that could blow up both the criminal and legitimate worlds in one shot. That confession is her real jackpot. Curtis's admission, whether recorded, memorized, or documented in some form only she controls, is an insurance policy that can be cashed in at any time. With it, she can cut a deal with the PCPD if the walls ever close in again. She can threaten to expose Curtis and destroy his life if he refuses to do her bidding. She can even trade on that truth within the five families, using it to demonstrate just how effectively she owns one of Port Charles' supposedly upstanding citizens. To Selena, Curtis is no longer a client. He is a currency. The brilliance of Selena's strategy is that she doesn't need to raise her voice to turn the whole town on its head. She moves like a chess master in reverse, starting with checkmate and slowly revealing how each piece got there. One quiet conversation here, one subtle threat there, a favor extended to the right player at the right moment, and the ground begins to shift under everyone's feet. By the time they realize she has re-entered the game, she's already rewritten the rules. Drew's survival adds another volatile piece to this already explosive puzzle. He isn't just a victim, he is a witness who doesn't yet know what he saw. Once Drew starts connecting the dots, he could become either Selena's next target or her unexpected ally. Imagine the fallout when Drew realizes someone he trusted, someone in Curtis's orbit, paid for his death. The emotional cost of that betrayal could be enormous, and in Port Charles, emotional damage often leads to dangerous choices. Drew, Carly, Sam, and everyone who cares about him will not let this go once the truth starts to surface. At the same time, Curtis is running out of room to maneuver. Every lie he tells to protect himself deepens the hole he's in. The more he scrambles to keep Selena at bay, the more obvious it becomes that she controls the tempo of this dance. If he tries to cross her, she can hand him to the PCPD on a silver platter. If he stays loyal, he becomes complicit in her larger plan to rewire the power structure of Port Charles. Either way, he's trapped in a deal he can't undo, and that is exactly where Selena wants him. Selena Wu's return, then, is not about revenge in the usual soap opera sense. She is not content with simply punishing the people who wronged her. She is engineering a full recalibration of power. The five families continue to see her as a piece of a puzzle they can rearrange. They haven't realized that she has become the table itself. Curtis struck the match when he handed over that envelope and asked for blood. Now, Selena stands calmly in the dark, holding the fuse, deciding exactly when and on whom the explosion will land. Would you like the next version of this kind of article to lean even more into spoiler-style speculation about future storylines, or keep it closer to an universe analysis like this one?